you. Thanks, Nicholas Mudimba, for that first part of this show. And viewers, welcome to the second session, which is the interview. We are hosting Mike Friday on a Saturday. That is the Kenya Rugby Sevens team head coach. And Mike Friday, welcome to our studios.
Thank you.
I'm sure you have seen all those issues that have been raised about whether you are in Kenya or you are not going to be in Kenya, but that we will leave it to the last part of this interview. But I want to get into the first issues first. Is the team ready or about to be ready for the World Cup?
We're getting ready. I think is probably the best way. This program towards the World Cup, we've been in play for the last 10 weeks. So we've had a 10-week program to build into the World Cup. We started the program probably before Scotland and England.
Yes.
And we've been on a conditioning program, as you saw in the recent interview there with Chris. It's very structured in terms of what we're doing, very scientific in how we go about our work and how we address and manage the volumes. That coupled with the rugby education and the on-pitch rugby tuition and development allows us then to kind of build in towards this pre-World Cup camp in the UK, which is where we'll be taken away and able to focus solely on the rugby aspects.
Of course, we will not talk so much about the World Cup rugby, which is coming up in a few weeks' time, without mentioning, of course, the performance of the IRB series. Of course, you took over this team about 10 months ago. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, how was that team like at that time when you took over, and now, and especially when we are heading to the World Cup?
Well, I won't lie. When I walked through the door 10 months ago onto that pitch in Kasarani, I did question what I got myself involved in. But the boys have been fantastic since day one. Their commitment, their desire, their passion to get better and become the best they can be as rugby players has been infectious. And you know, we sat in that room the first couple of days, and I talked about an environment I wanted to create, and the discipline, the desire, the sacrifice that they were going to have to make if they wanted to be a part of that environment. And I gave them the opportunity to go. I said, it's your choice, boys. If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out.
Yes.
They all stayed, and they all committed. And as a consequence, over these 10 months, the evolution of the on-pitch education in terms of rugby, the conditioning, the education on nutrition, supplementation, how to manage their bodies and their lives, have culminated into what you see 10 months on, which is a discipline-focused rugby team, a group of men who are a strong, close family that enjoy the responsibility of representing the Kenyan people.
Exactly. Again, of course, preparing for the World Cup is more or less different from preparing for the IRB series, because then in the IRB, when in a particular pool, when you lose, you have a consolation because you have the shield, you have the ball, and that kind of a thing. But then coming to the World Cup now, you have Philippines, you have Zimbabwe, we have Samoa again, and Samoa being one of the strong teams in terms of the sevens. And just to correct, of course, we did not beat Samoa, we beat Fiji in London.
Yeah.
Exactly. When it comes to that, do you prepare this team the same way you prepare them during the IRB series?
From a conditioning and rugby perspective and a mental, psychological aspect, absolutely. But obviously the stakes are higher because it's a one-off tournament every 4 years, but we can't get wrapped up in the emotions around that. We've got to focus on the processes and being the best we can be as rugby players on and off the pitch, and mentally and physically preparing ourselves accordingly. So from that perspective, whilst the rules of the game are different, i.e. there's 4 in a group, and in order to guarantee getting to the quarter-final, you've got to win your group, unlike the IRB series where the top 2 go through. So actually the pressure to make the minimal amount of errors, put the proper performance in, make sure you maximise your performance, are far, far greater, which kind of then means that, you know, you can't leave anything to chance. You can't have distractions. You've got to be 100% focused and committed to the task. And that's what the boys have been working on. That's what we've been working towards. That's what we've been educating them on. And that's what they understand by what they're committed to take forward towards the World Cup, which is why when everybody talks about where are we focused, we're focused solely on that challenge of putting the pride and representing the Kenyan people to the best that we can, and themselves and their families, when they run out in that World Cup.
Exactly. Let me take you back again to the group, because we are Philippines. Of course, somebody would say that will be our, you know, bogey team, if you like. Zimbabwe, they came here for the Africa Cup while you were away for the IRB in Scotland, and of course, a Kenyan second string side beat them. So is it an advantage for Kenya now playing Zimbabwe at the World Cup?
I think by the very nature of the way that the groups are structured, you see, understanding how to qualify, you have to win your group, or you have to be one of the best 2 runners up out of the 6 groups. So points scored is massive. The reality is we don't know much about the Philippines. We will do our due diligence, we will get our videos, so we will understand how they play, and we will then come up with a plan accordingly. When you play Zimbabwe, I think we need to recognise they're an evolving African nation who did remarkably well at Hong Kong this year and actually gave a good account of themselves in London.
Yes.
We had a strong second team out at the Rugby Sevens, and we played well that weekend, and we won that game, but that's one game. You can't focus on the past, we focus on the here, the now and the present, so we'll prepare accordingly. We understand how they play, we'll understand how we need to play, and then we'll try and take that game in its own entity. Then we'll move on to Samoa.
Yes.
Samoa will be an interesting entity because we don't know if they're going to bring their players back from France and the UK. If they do, that's fine, we'll understand how they play, but you've got to understand now, Kenya have kind of put themselves in a position where they're competitors. They're not participators now on the World Series. So
you must prove beyond now what people know about Kenya.
We're there to compete. So people expect us to compete. We expect us to compete.
Yeah.
So as a result, if we focus on what we can do well, we plan, we prepare accordingly for the opposition.
So, sorry to interject. I hope right now you are getting the necessary, apparatus to train this team.
Well, the reality, we're operating as we need to, how we've operated all season from a conditioning perspective and a rugby perspective. We train at Brookhouse School in the week, but we also do our training camps at Braeburn Garden Estate. So, our facilities, our common surroundings, our environment, we've kept constant. We will then take the group out of Kenya, out of the comfort zone, away from all the distractions, into the UK to the British Army camp at Aldershot, which is an elite sports centre which will have all the facilities that we require at our fingertips.
Exactly.
So it's good news, and
yes.
we're getting that support, which is great to see.
Exactly. As much as, of course, every Kenyan is behind this team, because finishing 5th, I mean, is really incredible. But now the IRB series is behind us, and we are focusing on the World Cup. But then again, I would not want to release you without asking you this particular question, because for the past close to a month or so, the talk has been whether Mike Friday remains as the Kenyan team coach, because basing on your input to this team's 5th finish in the IRB series, are you going to be around after the World Cup?
Right now, I'm around after the World Cup. I mean, and as Mwangi interjected, that review, a lot of that's been made. It was a review about Mike Friday. It wasn't. It was a review about the series, and I agree wholeheartedly with what Mwangi said. Irrelevant whether we'd finished 1st, 2nd, 10th, we'd have needed that review to see what we've done well, what we could do better, what needs to change, what doesn't need to change. And that was what the purpose of the review was. It was a fact-finding, information, exchange of ideas, so we could make the board aware of what we need moving forward if we want to continue on this journey, be constant and build and move forward. So a lot of that review has been made out to be about me when it wasn't. Of course, it was unfortunate what happened back in England, but we'll put that down to inexperience, unfortunate circumstances. But the reality is I can't control that. And to be fair, if you want my honest opinion, I'm not interested. I'm only interested and focused on preparing this Kenyan Sevens team to deliver what they're capable of delivering for the Kenyan people, which is a pride of a performance that if they get it right, we get a little bit of luck, we can be real contenders. What happens thereafter is outside of my control.
Exactly.
And I can't be interested in things that I can't control, only things that I can control.
Very well put. And Mike Friday, because I know that your team is training at around 4 o'clock, and I don't want you to miss that training so that you don't say, we put you here so you did not train that team.
Not.
We will let you off on that one, and but then again, we will need you again at some other time, because the World Cup is really a big thing, and we would want to probably get you to synthesize for the Kenyan fans what exactly is going to happen.
Yeah.
But for right now, we want to go take a commercial break. But when we come back again, Nicholas Mudimba will continue with this show. But later again, I will come back to exactly understand what the national team, Harambee Stars, is doing currently, because we know they are hosting Nigeria on Wednesday here in Nairobi.